He was a good guy, he was a bad guy.
Billy Monk was really an icon of the underworld.
A man who did this and that.
Hi, welcome back. Billy Monk was a bouncer at a seedy nightclub in Cape Town during the late 1960s. And he produced a body of work that I think is completely unique. While race segregation laws were being reinforced throughout the country, the Catacombs Club was a refuge for all races as well as the society outsiders. During that period, transvestites, gays, and lesbians were discriminated against and sometimes even jailed. His photographs are striking and decadent, so it's difficult now, 60 years on, not to look at them without a voyeuristic eye. One becomes absorbed by the details that are presented to us. Many people find themselves working in interesting places, but Monk managed to transform a mediocre job into an opportunity to create powerful pictures. They're also historically significant because they capture a segment of life that was soon to disappear. His images have the warts-and-all quality that one sees in Deanne Arbus's work, because they both chose to use a straight flash aesthetic. Even though I appreciate Arbus's work, I always get the sense that she was a rich girl who was titillated by the lives of those that lived on the edges of society. Monk, on the other hand, actually did live on the edge, and his pictures capture intimacy without being exploitative. He wasn't an outsider, he was one of them. Monk's life story could easily have been written up as one of those old dime store novels. He was a wheeler dealer who did whatever it took to make a quick buck. In his youth, he thought that burglary was a good career option, but unfortunately he wasn't a very good thief. He and his accomplice were caught in Cape Town's busiest street carrying a safe that they had just stolen from a supermarket. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison, and even on the inside he was an operator. He smuggled cigarettes and tins of condensed milk into the prison to make some cash. Later he worked on the railways, he became a traffic cop, then he turned to crayfish poaching, but got careless and got caught again. After opening a handmade leather shop, he tried his hand at being a bouncer at the Catacombs Club. It was a late-night dive close to the harbour, and like similar joints all around the world, it was a rough hangout for sailors and city strays. The spaces in the club were like dungeons, and the tables were shaped like coffins. Fights were a regular thing.
It was a dark, dismal place that stank of piss and beer and brandy.
As long as you were on the good side of Billy, he was great, but you didn't want to cross him. He was a short, stocky guy with a handsome face, but one that had been punched once too often. His standard uniform was denim shorts, t-shirt, and a pair of sandals. He had a charming way about him, and he had great success with women and also men. He was against any kind of artificial separation, and his common-law wife was believed to be classified as coloured. At that time, this type of partnership was illegal, so he again got into trouble with the authorities. Clubs needed a special permit to allow non-white bands to play, but mainly the Catacombs paid off a few policemen here and there and carried on their illicit business.
Woman was actually Tiki the Clown in the Boswell-Wilkie circus. And obviously something was going on. This was the local constabulary in those days. I remember the safari suits.
The policeman was obviously on duty. This was not an off-duty policeman. And I've got no doubt whatever that there would have been people of colour in the scenes.
Policemen, of course, popped in there quite often to see if there was any mixing of people of colour. But of course, all the guys like Billy, them and all that, all the contacts within this police, so these guys never really caught anybody. Come in and do their thing, and then afterwards they'd probably go out with a bottle or a couple of drinks.
Monk and his wife had 2 kids to look after, so he tried to make extra cash taking and selling photographs to the customers. He always photographed people to make them look good. You get the sense that his subjects were completely at ease with him as he entered their private spaces and intimate interactions. The work doesn't come across as a documentary project. He was photographing people from his world, so they trusted him as well as his intent. The work would have been extremely different if it were shot by a judgmental outsider who wanted to make a social statement. His equipment was basic: a Pentax Spotmatic, a 35mm lens, and a small on-camera flash, so he kept things simple. But he managed to master the difficult task of focusing in the dark and getting the flash settings right. To save on film, he would usually only shoot one frame or sometimes two. He had a great eye and a natural sense of composition. These weren't snapshots. He was very aware of gesture and choosing the right moment. He didn't manipulate his subjects. It was more of a collaboration.
These were really very fine photographs. They were not only well considered, well composed, well put together, they were technically fine. So that the photographs, in my opinion, stand out as being a shot in the dark, as it were, literally, because this place was very dark, but much more than that, something never to be repeated and possibly didn't have a precursor either in his life.
Towards the end of the 1960s, the Cape Town inner city started to change dramatically. The non-white residents were being forcibly removed and taken to newly formed townships way out on the outskirts of the city. Another dramatic change happened within the shipping industry. Cargo transport was switched to containers, and this meant that sailors from visiting ships no longer came to the club in large numbers. Eventually, the Catacombs had to close down and Monk had to move on. He became a diamond diver on the rugged west coast of South Africa. He had meticulously stored all of his negs in separate folders in files, and he left them in a photographer's studio. The space changed hands a few times, but eventually the new tenant, a photographer called Jacques de Villiers, discovered his files. He recognized that he was looking at a unique body of work. He decided to print up some of the photographs, and together with David Goldblack, they organized a very basic exhibition of his in Johannesburg. Viewers were fascinated by this work, and the reviews were extremely positive. One called him a modern-day Toulouse-Lautrec, and the Johannesburg Art Gallery bought 6 of his prints. De Villiers contacted Monk, who was now 45 years old, to let him know about this great response to his work. Monk was very keen to see the exhibition, so he headed back to Cape Town to find a lift to Johannesburg. Sadly, Monk didn't get to see his exhibition, and he never saw his rave reviews either. Before leaving Cape Town, he visited a bar, got into a fight, and was shot dead. As he was stumbling to the floor with 2 bullet holes through his new cheap jacket, he was heard to say, "You've gone and killed me." The shooter got away with a suspended sentence and had to pay the equivalent of $5. Monk was buried at sea. On the boat was his wife, his 3 sisters, and a group of old friends. His photographs were a real slap in the face to the architects of apartheid, because the whole premise of the system was that different cultures and races couldn't mix. But his pictures clearly proved them wrong. At some point, he had boasted to a friend saying, "You'll see, I'll make it in photography. They'll be talking about my photographs long after I've gone." In 2012, his images were included in an exhibition at the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, as well as at the International Center of Photography in New York. Thanks for staying with me, and I'll see you next time.
Billy was supposed to be on his way to go up there and have a look at his exhibition and didn't make the gig because that's when he got shot.
And then the story started coming out from Coburn Street.
I think there's probably a lot more to the story than we know.
Like the broken telephone, you know? What's true, what isn't?
He was a mystery.
Billy Monk, of course, was completely and clearly against the whole racist regime.
Billy, as was his custom, was here today and gone tomorrow, so he'd be going like gone fishing.